Hi, I'm Connie Whitman, your host, and you're listening to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. As always, thank you so much for joining us today. So my motivational quote is by Peter Drucker, and he says, "The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, it is the act with yesterday, is to act with the logic of yesterday." So now here's the question I want you to stop and think about. Are you a leader in your organization, and do you think that the methods of doing business and the expectations placed on you as a leader are up to date and effective? Now, I'm guessing most of you just stopped what you're doing and are thinking, is my organization's methodology working? Now, I'll bet you're also thinking, probably not. You wouldn't be alone. So today I have an awesome guest. His name is Whitney Vosburgh, and he's going to share his new book. Wait for it. It's WTF. Behave. It's a PG show. The book title is WTF. It stands for Work the Future Today. Finding your path to purpose, passion, and profit. And Whitney and his co-author also created a workbook, again, Work the Future Today 2019 Pocket Pal. It's a faster path to purpose, passion, and profit. And I'd like to just give you some background on Whitney. So Whitney's book discusses the need for leaders around the world to adopt a new paradigm of how we actually do business. The old story, in quotes, the way businesses have been run for decades and perhaps even centuries, has just become obsolete. So where do we go from here? Well, stay tuned. In the next half hour, you're going to learn what changes you may need to make to help your organization flourish. Now, here are just some fun facts about Whitney. Whitney is the co-founder of Work the Future Today. It's a social venture. Social venture offering vision, leadership, and solutions for maximizing personal, organizational, and societal potential. He's also the co-founder of Brand New Purpose, a brand transformation consultancy that creates purpose-built, value-driven organizations. Now, additionally, and I think this is just so cool, Whitney is also an artist where his work has been featured in exhibitions throughout the world. So extremely creative as well. And the last thing I want to mention is Whitney and his co-author, Charlie Grantham. They draw on their decades of leadership experience in consulting, academia, and research in the fields of marketing, organizational design, and R&D. Now, both authors argue that the people, organizations, and systems that are the ablest, capable of changing in this ever-changing world, are the ones that are actually going to survive. Now, in addition, the authors emphasize we have to lead with purpose. So with that, I hope, wonderful introduction. Please help me welcome Whitney Vosburgh to the show. So Whitney, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Connie. Pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, and we were talking before we started the recording that I was going to joke about the WTF. The book itself has WTF in big black letters, so it catches your attention, which is just kind of cool, I think, with all the books out there, for something to stand out is awesome. So first question. In WTF, you say that the old story, in quotes, the way businesses have been run for decades and probably even centuries, it's just obsolete now. So what is that old model of doing business, and why do you think it's so urgent that it be replaced?
We are at a point of actually or nearly at a point of no return in the viability, sustainability, and resilience of the global life support systems that enable life in all forms to exist on this planet. The old story of profit first, with its emphasis on extraction, exploitation, and cronyism, with its focus on the shareholder, has brought many of us far, but it's not going to take us any further in terms of progression, prosperity, and the like. So now we have to make a choice. Are we going to stick with the old, or are we going to go on to something better, a new, better model? So the old story of profit first took us to the triple bottom line of profit, people, planet, which was a good development instead of just focus on profit. But now we have to flip that over to the new story of purpose first. Another way of saying it is people first, people over profits. But it's not as simple as that. So that the new story of purpose first is based on addition, regeneration, and collaboration, cooperation, co-creation, co-ownership. So it's a focus on stakeholders. Everybody's involved, including shareholders. And we have to flip the old triple bottom line to planet, people, profit. Why? If there's no planet, there's no people. If there's no people, there's no profit. It's that simple.
Yeah.
You can think of it in purely human terms as the old story was ruled by fear. The new story is ruled by love. And the old story took place in here. The new story is going to add this to go, to travel, especially amongst men, to travel that longest distance, the 18 inches from head to heart. Because we need both the IQ and the EQ, the intellectual intelligence, the emotional intelligence, and to travel another 18 inches down from the heart to the gut, we need intuitive intelligence. It's only when the three are in alignment that we are at our most powerful.
Why did you say especially men? I'm curious.
Men in many societies, including America, have been taught directly and indirectly through modeling, leadership, media, parenting, what have you, that emotions are not manly. And emotions are very manly. They're very womanly. They're very childly. Why? Because it is to be, we are emotional creatures more than anything else. We're relational.
And I guess because there's so many women in the workplace now, the old model, right, I would imagine started well before women were in the workplace. So now women are a key component of, and in big leadership positions as well. So if you're dealing with women, it's very, men and women. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We are drastically different. So I get it. I get that concept.
Well, the most important thing is that, the truth is that men and women are from Earth.
Right.
But maybe not for too long. Right. We have a choice right here and now. It's destruction or creation, fear and greed, or love and abundance.
Yeah. Now this book has been out a while. You've been out on the road advocating and meeting with your clients in regards to this concept. Are people giving you a lot of pushback? What's the vibe?
Well, I'll give you an example. I consulted for one of the biggest companies in America. And I showed them, I proved to them beyond any doubt that they could do so much better, both profitably as well as communally, by doing well, by doing good.
Sure.
They wanted a 30% increase. I gave them a 300% increase. But not only did they ignore it, but they went in reverse order and went and did something evil. I can't discuss these things, but not only did they lose that golden opportunity of transforming themselves irreversibly to do so much better by doing so much more and great good for themselves, their shareholders, their stakeholders, the communities they do the business in, for America, but they actually went the opposite direction. They went from banally evil to actually heinously, aggressively evil.
It's crazy, especially because you have another model that works, is proven to work, and it can increase the productivity, which is really, I mean, businesses are in business clearly to make money, but on the same token, you're exactly right. We need to give back. We need to make sure we sustain ourselves and businesses. Now, in the book, you also wrote that the way we look at the very nature of work has changed. So how have you seen it change through all your research, and why do you think it's happening?
Well, there are a number of reasons. It's increasing diversity in the workplace, in terms of we've never had such a range from Gen XYZ, millennials, Xers, boomers, and beyond.
Yep.
In terms of age,
yep.
Because people are getting older, living longer, and working longer, and people have to work longer as well. And we have more women, we have more diversity of all persuasions. We even have the emerging neuro diversity. In other words, people process things differently. You know, we have different forms of body and mental and emotional ableism. People are able to do some things that others can't do. And even though sometimes people are looked at as having a deficit, and they might in one regard, but they might have more than make up for that in many other ways. So the whole thing slowly but surely is becoming far more dimensional. Because before, people basically just had a mask, and you would draw whatever the employer wanted to see on that mask.
Sure.
People are bringing their individuality and their purpose, their passion, their path, their quest for progress, for peace, for prosperity, into the workplace. Because the workplace is where we take what we bring to life and put it to work.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you're right.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue.
Yeah, it's to take a long story and make it very short. If this is your individual purpose and this is an organizational purpose, they have to have overlap. If there isn't overlap, you are in the wrong job, in the wrong place, for the wrong employer.
Yeah, and it matters, right? Because we want to live a purposeful life. We want to live a passionate life. We want to have fun at work and feel like we're contributing. So right, if you're not in the right job, you have control. Move somewhere else or do something else where your values are in alignment, right?
Well, the U.S. government recently said that your health is more dependent on your supervisor than your doctor.
Crazy.
And the U.S. workplace has gotten so stressful that Monday morning heart attacks has risen by 20% in recent years.
It's crazy. The stress of going to work. It's funny. Another show I did maybe a year ago. I always do a little research before I write my introduction. And it said that, and it was the Gallup poll, and I think it was 2015, 2016, so still relevant. And they said that 70% of people working hate their job, and that the number one reason is exactly what you just said, is they have the boss from hell. So there you go, and that statistic supports that.
Yes, Gallup runs very good polls. They're very purpose-centric.
Yes.
Admire their work. I read another amazing fact just yesterday, which is that majority of American workers would willingly give up a pay raise to see their boss fired.
Crazy. I believe it. I totally believe it. It's crazy, right? Yeah. The organizations really need to start some of these people in power. They really need to clip their wings because it is definitely affecting productivity, but it's affecting morale and all those other things which can diminish productivity. In your book also, you talk about three major concepts that you want the readers to think about as they go through the book. And you talk about the corners of a triangle. Just can you share a little bit about that too?
Yes, the triangle is, you can think of it as this way: head, heart, hands. Why, who, and where, how. My purpose, the home of my purpose, the who of my purpose, and the how of my purpose.
Yeah.
You know, we each have either a singular or a multifaceted gift or set of gifts. That's why we're here. So the most important thing eventually is to look inside where all the answers are and ask myself, what is my unique gift to share in this life? With whom who would most benefit from it? And where do I find them? My community of stakeholders.
Sure.
And how do I best share that gift or gifts with those who would most benefit from it? It's talking about maximum impact, about making the world that much better a place for having been here and shared one's gifts. And if everyone does that just a little bit more and a little bit more, we could make the world such a better place quickly.
I agree 100%. And this looking within concept that, you just kind of mentioned, we have to look within ourselves to create that change, to create that triangle, right? There's a little effort there on us individually. Why do you think it's so important? And why do you think it took us so long to come to this realization now?
The world is becoming an ever smaller place. So we in the West developed business. Here's a good way of putting it. The Dalai Lama said 10, 20 years ago, you in the West, you've been exploring outer space for the last 50 years. We've been exploring inner space for the last 5,000 years. So
True.
The West looks outside of self. The East typically has traditionally been looking within. With global culture, we have had a merging of the two. So we have Western capitalism, which has gone global, but we've also had Eastern philosophy gone global as well. So the thing is, we have this thing called ego, which is very important for our survival. But in order to thrive, to go from surviving to thriving, we have to go beyond the ego, down to the heart center, the gut, the intuitive center, so that we're in alignment from head to heart to gut. That's the internal work we have to do.
Yeah.
All the answers to everything that is truly important to the individual and hence society lies within. And here's the rub. Most people, particularly in America, don't want to grow up. We are, the majority, grown-up children. We haven't gone the extra mile of looking inside and saying, tag, I am it. I am solely responsible for myself, for my life, for finding and sharing my gifts with the world, for making a true difference, and to live a life worth living with as few regrets as possible, so that when I die, I will have very few regrets. And I will die with a smile on my face. Because to die well, you have to live well. And to live well is to search for and share your gifts, to make a difference. Because we're all part of something greater.
Yeah, and in the book you mentioned you keep using the word transformation, and it appears a lot in the book, which I love, right? Because I think we are at a very critical point where transformation is going to be key. What do you mean when you use that word, or what do you think when you think of transformation?
Yes, much is said and written about innovation, which is basically is to make a change to, since change is so complex and chaotic and confusing and ever quickening, that just to stay in place today, you have to innovate to make changes so that, as everything's moving, you have to move a little faster just to stay in place, like a treadmill.
Sure.
But it's not, it's easily reversed. It's a slippery slope. It's necessary, but to transform is to make such a great change that you actually are ahead of the curve so that you can stay ahead today and tomorrow and the next day. And the biggest difference between innovation and transformation is that transformation is irreversible. Once done, you can never go back.
It's funny. I always say this and people laugh. It's like my quote, right? The Connie Whitman quote. But I say, we don't know what we don't know, right? We have those blind spots. So we don't know what we don't know. But as soon as someone teaches you and you learn it and you know it, you can't go back and unknow it, right? Because it's part of us. So that's the element of this, transformation, that once we're transformed. And you know what I think, Whitney, also? Once you're transformed and you hear a better way or that different perspective and we start to execute from that transformation, you don't want to go back. Yeah, and it becomes an exponential movement, right? We move with better flow, and I think with more eagerness, and we grow faster and faster and faster. So it's really it's a slippery slope in a good way, right?
But all the answers are inside.
Always.
We all have our bonfire of our life force waiting for us. But it's only us, individuals, who can find and light the match, put the match to our bonfire to come to life, to be the phoenix, to arise from the ashes of our false identity, our ego-based appearance, and all that. Because the thing is, you have to be your own leader. No one else can be or wants to be your leader. What I mean by leader is, if you live your life, that's good. To lead your life is that much better. And lead is you find your purpose, your passion, your gifts. You create a North Star out of that. It creates a path. You work backwards. What steps do I need to take in order to get in the right direction, have a sense of purpose, and actually be purposeful so that you can make a unique difference in the world.
And I agree with that 100%. And you know what I hear yesterday? I just taught a class on change management with emerging leaders and specifically in the banking industry yesterday. And the number one answer you get, they all believe, yes, I'm in control. Yes, I have to create my future. I have a choice, right, within. It's me, right?
You always have a choice, but you always have a choice. We always have a choice, no matter what.
Always.
But we're never in control.
Oh, explain that. I'm a control freak.
Life is so dynamic and unpredictable. We're never in control.
Yeah.
Of external factors.
Right.
We can only become. Very few people achieve this. Can control ourselves in the sense of not holding on like this, but controlling ourselves in terms of having the alignment of head, heart, and gut.
Sure.
So that we always have three choices. We can act, we can not act, and we can react. We always have a choice of those three things.
True.
That we can develop control over. Anything else, no.
Yeah, and it's funny because in the class they were saying that, somebody comes in a bad mood. Oh, there's you hit a ton of traffic and you're late for your meeting. Oh, the kid got sick. Oh, my mom got sick. So, and the response is, can you ever control those outbound things? No. And do they happen? Yes, that's life, right? We're out of control with that. How you respond, how you show up, how you lead your people. That's where the magic happens. And we have a choice. It's really, Whitney, it's hard, I think, for people to look internally. It's easier to deflect and blame externally. It's Whitney's fault that I wasn't able to do this. Instead of taking that, that's the ego, right? That you were talking about before.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we are the sum of our choices.
Totally.
So we always have an opportunity to start making better choices.
And really, we have the power to do that. And I hope as people are listening, it resonates with them that, we can't control the chaos and the nonsense and the craziness of, traffic. I'm in New Jersey and the traffic is just ridiculous. Well, you know it. So leave early enough, and then, you still have time to have your cup of coffee in the morning because there's going to be traffic. It's not like a new anomaly here, right? So control the things you can control. Get up early, leave early. That's the things you can control. You can't control if there's an accident on the road.
To put it another way, yes, there's chaos, confusion, complexity, change out there. But it doesn't mean that you have to reflect that back inside yourself. You can say, okay, that's the world's going crazy. I don't have to go crazy.
That you have a choice of not going crazy, right? We really do have a choice. I loved the book. Now, my last question, we have about maybe 4 minutes left, but what would you like to see or hear after people read this book to let you know that they're real, like, I've got the message, and what can they do to continue along this journey to create this new future? So what would you like to hear, and maybe give a tip or two of how people could get started to build that new momentum?
Yeah, one simple tip is try something new or do something differently every day. It can be really small. For example, if you're right-handed, brush your teeth with your left hand. You're starting to teach your brain to think in new different ways. You're creating new neural pathways. So that's just a simple tip. The journey from the head to the heart and beyond starts in quiet moments where you slow down, you turn the volume down on the ego, the monkey mind, the chattering, and start getting intimate with yourself. So many people are strangers to themselves. They don't know themselves. So it's by slowing down and quieting the monkey mind and being quieter, slower, stiller, and start listening to the yearnings of one's life force, soul, spirit, prana, chi, whatever you want to call it, the fire that burns within. That's where all the answers are. So by meditation, by walking in nature, by gardening, by being service of others, by quietly doing something that you like to do, or doing nothing, or watching the sunset, anything that you can do to make more time for yourself, for developing and deepening a relationship with yourself, it has a payoff that is without incomparable. Jesus, for example, talks about the kingdom of heaven. That's what he was referring to. That which lies within.
Yeah, it's priceless. And we hear it so much, Whitney. Slow down, smell the roses, right? We've all heard that expression before. And yet, I think we put more and more and more and more and more on our calendar, more and more and more and more on our kids' calendar when they're young. We have them in 2 travel teams instead of 1 travel team. And then you have CCD on the weekends, and then you have church on Sunday. So instead of just keeping the bare minimum of what we should exert energy on, we add more and more and more. And I think sometimes it's because we're not in transformation mode. We're not in that self-discovery mode, because it's easier to move, keep moving without self-reflecting. And it's hard. It's definitely a hard skill to develop, and it's necessary. Yeah.
the four most powerful words in the English language is why, love, yes, and no. Love yourself so that you can love others. Always ask why. Nothing is as it seems to be. Question everything.
Yeah.
Say no to the things that are not important. Say yes to the things that are important. And of course, wisdom is knowing the difference between the two. Yeah. Wisdom doesn't come from here. It comes from life experience, from thinking about things, feeling things, intuiting things.
Yeah, and I don't remember who shared this example. It was a professor, I believe, but I don't remember where it started. Probably on LinkedIn or Facebook, like the story went around. But it was, you have a jar, and the professor in the front of the room has sand, rocks, and water. Right? You know what I'm talking about?
It's a great one.
It is. It makes sense. So if you put the sand in, if you put the water in first, then the sand, then the rocks, there's not enough room for the rocks. And the rocks represent the big things in life that we should pay attention to, right? The sand is the little minutia that we get caught up in, and the water is just, I guess, the everyday life, right? So what you should do is put the boulders in first, or the rocks in first, so that that's your big things that you should be focusing on in your life, your family, your health, obviously doing a good job at work, finding your purpose, all of those things. And then you add the sand, right? And you shake it in there and it gets into the nooks and crannies. And then the last piece is the water. And you shake that and then it all fits. We have it flipped backwards. We get caught up in the minutia of the little particles of sand. And then you can't fit anything else into your life. So I just love how you said that, the why. We need to ask why we're doing what we're doing, because we're doing the same thing over and over, and we're definitely not getting the new results, right? Definition of insanity. So it's just so interesting. We're out of time, but do you have any last tips that I really do want people to read this book, especially leaders out there, because we have to start doing things differently. It matters, and we need to take this seriously. So is there like one thing that you could say, or two things that you would add that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, become master of your calendar. So block out personal time. It's even if it's a minute, an hour, a day, a week, a month, whatever it is. The longer you plan further out, the more likely something is to happen.
That's true. I want to share something too. The other day, after reading the book, I'm a righty, so the left hand, I don't remember what I was doing. I think I have a Keurig coffee machine, and I think I was putting the pod, and I always right hand, everything is right hand. I thought, ooh, let me use my left and let me see. It was bizarre. Took me a little longer to make my coffee.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that listeners know that the two Work the Future Today books are available on Amazon.
Yes, thank you for that. And I was just going to give, so Whitney, if you're interested, you could definitely buy them on Amazon. I will post in my introduction on the Web Talk Radio Enlightenment of Change platform. Whitney, I put the title of both books. Right. Also, you can go to Whitney's website, which is www.workthefuture.today. And if you'd like to reach out, you have questions for Whitney, please reach out to him directly. He's sharing his email. It's W for Whitney, w@workthefuture.today. And Whitney, a lot of people commute with us in the morning as they drive into their workplace. So I post the website and email so everybody can find it. And again, the book is available. Both books are available on Amazon. Thank you so much for taking the time, being on, and for sharing. This is such an important topic, and the research and the information that you and Charlie share is spot on. Every leader should be reading this book. So thank you so much for writing it, but also for being on the show. I do appreciate that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And guys, if you need to reach me, or you want to share a story, or you'd like me to cover a topic, I'm happy to find the resource or the guests out there. Contact me directly at Connie@WhitmanAssociates.com. I check my emails personally, so no one else is responding. Thank you again, Whitney, for being an amazing guest. Again, one more time, the website is www.workthefuture.today. Again, go and find the book on Amazon. Thank you all. I hope you will join me, my listeners, weekly as we question, build, and discover together that change is not only possible with guests like Whitney that he shared today. It's probably easier than you think. Do something different and just watch the magic happen. Thank you again to my amazing guests. Thank you all for joining me. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. Everyone, I wish you an inspired week. Thanks so much.